All right, man. So it's been a while, since I personally interviewed a man in person. So I'm happy to have my brother here.
Yes, sir.
This guy is definitely brilliant. Somebody I've known for almost 10 years now, close to it.
Yeah.
Close to 10 years, and he is just so accomplished, educated. Somebody that when I think about thinking about the deeper things of life, he is somebody that I look to call when he's available, because he's bouncing in and out the schools, affecting the kids, man, and he's written a book, recently married. The guy is just doing all types of amazing and great things, and so. I want to introduce, the Fresh Life audience, to my friend, my brother, Antwan Steele.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to have you, brother.
Good late morning.
Good late morning. So, man, thanks for coming. As I know getting out the house, in the morning is I'm not a morning person.
I was about to say this ain't a problem.
Yeah. So is that around you?
This ain't a problem.
Oh, okay.
It's 11 o'clock. It ain't 6 in the morning.
What time did you get up?
I don't even want to say, man. I kind of got up and came here.
Fair enough.
Well, we had DJ's surprise yesterday, so we stayed out a little bit late.
Okay.
So a little tired last
Party
night.
animal.
Yeah. You know how we kick it.
Fair enough.
In the city.
So Jazz is not here, and so if you're looking for Jazz, she's not in the building, but I just promise you that this is going to be, worth your time. I wanted, Twan and I were discussing just the other day about, some of the things that men go through, and we kind of had, it's a really good conversation, and I thought why not share this, with the audience as well. We were really discussing in that moment, just kind of what men deal with, from a mental space and just a life space, and just how, generationally we miss a lot of different things. And so it's how do we learn to become, this man?
Yeah.
And what I really think about is I've said, on social media that this is going to be a different era, of Black fathers, that the 80s was ridden with, our, drug addicted parents and people who just really struggle with substance abuse and then prison. And so the fathers couldn't be in the home. And so what you've kind of seen how that looked. Yeah. You've seen that laid out, right? So now I think this generation of fathers is going to be completely different, especially in the Black home. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do think that. Well, I hope that it would be different this generation. I was actually just talking about this the other day. It's so important that we are really parenting our kids or mentoring our kids, particularly the Black men and Black young men and Black young women, boys and girls, because it just pushes the culture forward. And I was talking to someone, and I was just sharing with them how there can be a generation of let's just use Black men, since it's two Black men. There could be a generation of Black men. There can be one half who has influences in their life. Let's not even use father, or it could be father, mentor, whoever, who has people that are supporting them. And then there is another, the half of the generation who doesn't have anything.
Wow. So
the half that has that support, that advances the culture faster, while this generation or this half of the generation is trying to figure it out. So they might not figure it out until their late 30s, 40s, 50s, or they may never figure it out. They're usually going to have children, and then it affects them. Yeah. So prime example is yesterday, or what's today? Tuesday. So on Sunday, we seen our little brother Ray. We seen him preach. Yeah. And in my mind, I was thinking about how this is a prime example of advancing the culture. Yeah. Pastor didn't start preaching until he was 27, 28 or something like that. Here you see Ray preaching at 20. Yeah. That's what you mean about advancing the culture. Yeah. So it's not that we're trying to grow people up quicker, but we're just trying to get them quicker to maturity so that they can handle things at a better, in a better way. And then it just moves us forward. So that's why, there's so many reasons why it's so important for us to really mentor the youth, to father our kids, to really be in their lives. But I think because we've had such a late start from history, If we are more intentional about instilling into them the principles and values that they need and do it early on, and not just letting them be kids and just messing up their, late teens or early 20s just because they want to party and have fun or whatever, it will move our culture forward collectively, and then we'll be able to accomplish more as a people. So
It's kind of like how Jay-Z said, his only job was to cut the time in half.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
And so it's like kind of that same feeling, like, I'm not gonna be a perfect, father or
Right.
a perfect mentor, but if I can just cut in half the
Mhm.
time it took me to get what you should get,
Mhm.
then that's a great influence.
Yeah.
Because it's still gonna take you some effort.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a perfect father doesn't give his
It's no
kids,
such thing.
give it to them, but he at least makes that road easier to walk down, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that growing up as a Black male, especially, there is a struggle to create this pathway in life.
Mhm.
I was looking up, it's a term, I'm not sure if you ever heard of it, and I had never heard of this term, so trust me, like it's called Henryism.
Mm.
It's crazy. So Henryism, there's a guy named John Henry, and he was, and for those who are in the audience, if I get this detail wrong, please, correct me, hit me up on Instagram, whatever. John Henry was a former slave, and he ended up working extremely hard to overcome, the travails of being a slave. And so he worked really hard, ended up owning, I want to say it was 80 acres of land, taught himself how to read and write.
Okay.
And he worked extremely hard, had a family, but he died at 50. So Henryism is a measurement scale for minorities, especially Black people, as to say, those who have become affluent, what did it cost them to get there because of racial discrimination, because of institutional racism? Like, what did it cost their body, their mental makeup in order to reach this place? And that, for those who maybe have that, this low space in their life, who haven't been able to rise above, poverty or whatever else, do they live longer? And so it's a very interesting study.
Very interesting.
Because there is correlation. There's correlation to just what it takes to grow up a Black male in a racial world, and how that impacts cardiovascular disease, how it impacts diabetes. It impacts so many different areas of the health
stress.
How do you kind of deal with some of the stresses, of being such an ambitious person, an ambitious male? Because there's so many males who desire to have more. And there's a lot of males who don't know how to become ambitious. They don't know how to have a plan. Like, how do you kind of balance that out?
I'm gonna be honest. When I hear people ask questions like this, and it's just like, when it's answered, it's almost like when people answer it, it's like they like it's just like one cookie cutter answer. And to be honest, this is something, if I'm just being completely transparent, this is something I'm still figuring out. I mean, you gotta think I'm in a different transition, right? Or a different period of my life, being a newlywed. So obviously, I have a responsibility to my wife, who is my, number one priority. Now starting, a few new businesses. It's just, I think that it's going to always be something that has to be reevaluated depending on what season you're in. So, for example, when you Jazz got married, that was something that you had to figure out. And then when you had Caleb, that was something you had to figure out. And now JoJo's here. It's like it's not just one kid; it's two kids, and then so on and so forth. So I think that it's not so much about something that I can answer right here and there. As far as like in particular how I manage it, I think it's more so just reevaluating or reassessing where you are, aligned with your priorities, and then everything else kind of fall into place. So for me, I would say I'm a newlywed. I know that me and my wife are really trying to learn each other, know each other. So that's something that I have to be more intentional about. On the flip side, I have our businesses. This is how we eat. This is how we put food on the table. So that's something that I have to prioritize. But then also I know that I need to have that play, that work play, life balance or whatnot. So how do I, intertwine all three of those or whatever else it may be. But I know what it is that I need to implement or what it is in my life. I just need to reevaluate how I handle that. And that can always change on a weekly basis.
That's true.
Because, this week you might spend 70 hours working.
Yeah.
You might not be able to do a date night. It's cute to say, yeah, me and my wife, we do a date night every week.
Right.
That's just not always a reality.
Marriage goals.
Yeah, and for those who do that, I respect you and I aspire to that. But I just think it always changes, especially for an entrepreneur. So I'm sorry if I didn't answer that for the audience, but I would just say that you really have to reevaluate it on a need basis.
So how do you, if in the midst of you having these different businesses and, being newly married and so being pulled, left and right, with that stress that we were discussing that comes on being like a Black male, what is your way of practicing self-care? Like how do you balance that mental part for yourself?
Yeah, I think, exercise, I like to run. To me, I think running is very healthy, obviously, but it's like therapeutic for me.
Like running to the store?
No. Like running like a mile or two. And I haven't ran as much as I used to, but
straight?
Of course. I remember so
you don't stop?
No.
You don't walk with your hands on your hips?
The most I've ran nonstop was 13.5 miles.
Well, who's you running from? You gotta run from somebody.
I was running from myself.
you gotta be running from your past. Or something.
I was running from myself.
Hello.
Did I have myself?
Yeah, it stopped the recording when it
edits.
You could. No, when probably due to bounce.
Oh, okay.
You could though. Okay. And feel free to what am I trying to say? Two things. Try not to tap because it picks up like every little thing. And then also like feel free to if you have questions, send them back. You know what I mean?
Okay.
All right, so this is first. All right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like you must have been like running like from something like I don't know anybody. Well, let me say this: I don't know anybody that's really tan in the melanin area that has run.
That's a good one. You a politician?
Yeah, I try to balance this thing out, right?
Like you did that. Like how you did that.
I don't know a lot of brown skinned people who run like that. I mean, is that like how big a deal is that to you? Like you were saying.
And see, I think that's something that we have to. That's just like the myths that we have. Like, we don't run, we don't swim, we don't read.
Yeah.
You want to debunk those myths. I think for me, what motivated me to start running was when I went to the doctor and the physician who was the head of heart at Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah.
Cleveland Clinic is number one in heart.
Yeah.
He's the head of it. So I was having a lot of chest pains and I was having sharp pains in my arm. And long story short, I had high cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
He came to the room and he was like, Antwan, good news is you don't have coronary heart disease.
Yeah.
But if you don't take Lipitor, you will. And to me, I just thought that was like, how do you come at somebody like that?
Wow.
And it really messed me up. I was scared. And I remember going back to, this is when I worked at Cleveland Clinic, I remember going back to my colleague and telling her, and she was like, Antwan, I'm gonna recommend you to someone else. She recommended me to the woman, and when I told her the story, she was just like, Antwan, she said, you're young. She said, if you really get serious about dieting and you work out, exercise, she said you'll be okay. And I instantly just started running, and then I started to love it. And I would see me struggling with doing a mile.
I see it on Instagram.
Yeah, so it's just like and I did like 100 miles in 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
And it just became a lifestyle for me. And I mean, I don't run as much, whatever. But I would say, to get back to your question, I would say that exercising, of course, is always a good thing to do. Meditating and reading, I love to get in my word and pray, serve, travel. Me and my wife been traveling a lot, so it's really just those things that are kind of mindless. What kind of just like lets you just walk away from just the hustle and bustle of life. Just to kind of wind down and just feel like stress-free, whatever that is for you. Cooking, whatever it is. Yeah. Not me per se cooking, but
you don't cook.
Well, I've been really making like these gourmet spaghetti dishes. Oh man, I'm getting there, man. I'm getting there. Salmon.
What is a gourmet spaghetti? What is a gourmet spaghetti?
I had to, what I'm saying, just let it be like, a little more special. Gourmet. I actually just made a batch of spaghetti Oreo without the time.
Mm.
I had put like peppers in it, like all the different
Ooh, basil.
I'm just trying, like I'm just sprinkling. Look, I'm not using measuring cups now. I'm arrogant, man. I'm arrogant. I'm just like,
you just throw it in there with your
the
hand.
measuring cup is in the thing. I'm like, I don't even need that. Let me just fill this up, man.
How did it taste?
Oh, it was great.
Oh yeah.
And, I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to, gas myself, but
No.
Mike came over.
Okay.
Mike Collins.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mike. Ask Mike. It was really good. On the 2 my own horn, but
Wow.
Two.
Self-care.
So self-care, man. Make spaghetti like Twan, man. I might do a cookbook, man. Coming 2020. So what would you say?
Yeah.
So what would be some self-care, things that you do? What would you say?
For me, man, it's a delicate balance, because again, I have, a wife that stays home, and works from home, and so when I get home, the kids are, already, it's kind of like that thing, I come home and I want to relieve her, but also need the relief, and so it's a very weird balance because I have to kind of play both roles, and on top of that, they want to play. Mm-hmm. So how do I find that time to get away? And then, when I do have free time, there's something else I should be doing or I have to do, or some an interest I want to fulfill, or I got to get the car, fixed or get it, whatever. Like, it's a ton of different things. And so this self-care is like crazy important. One of the things that I love to do is just still get a massage. Like that to me is like that allows that if there's nothing else, and men, like, don't feel ashamed to like, massage isn't feminine.
It's not.
Like, it's a space where the masseuse ain't talking to you. Mm-hmm. The room is quiet or it's tranquil. It's perfectly set, man, and your body gets relaxed. Mm-hmm. Your muscles that were tight get loosened up. Like, you just feel like a better human being. Men, don't be afraid to go get a manicure, pedicure. And what trips me out about even that part is
go ahead.
Men act like women's feet is different than theirs, right? I mean, like, I got feet. It didn't matter. I don't want fungus. I don't want black toenails. I don't want none of that. I want to feel good about me. Like, I want to, like, if I walk into a room, I want to feel clean. I want to feel godly. I want to.
And there's nothing that's not manly about that.
Period.
And I think, that's actually good that you just said that, because, we've been dealing with this whole toxic masculinity and, just what it means to be a man. And we always associate manhood with physical strength or toughness or the ability to not cry or how many women you sleep with or how much money you got. And it's a guy on Instagram, I keep forgetting. I actually just sent it to you the other day. I forget his name, but he said that one thing, he's really big on debunking the myths of manhood. Yeah. And he posted,
Jason Wilson?
Yeah. He posted a picture of him going to the store to pick out flowers. Yeah. And when you see him, like, he's a straight up brother, he's built nice, and he's well kept, well clean, and he was picking out flowers. And you could instantly look at him like, oh man, I don't pick out flowers, that's sweet. I mean, I might not personally be into that, but it kind of made me think like, why not? I go pick out flowers for my wife. I go pick out flowers for my mother, my grandmother. Why can't I pick out flowers for myself? Yeah. I mean, you gonna get them when you gone. Man. It's like, so, and if you smell a natural flower, it smells good. Yeah. And I think statistics show that flowers put people in a better mood. Let's go. So it's like, why as a man can't I do that? Yeah. Or why as a man can I get my feet done or my hands done? But because women do, that's the thing that women do so much, we try not to associate ourselves with it, even if we want to do it. Yeah. So
women also eat. They also shower. They also use some soap that smell good. Like, you can like you said at your funeral, like, you gonna want flowers. Okay, so you want to be so manly, we're gonna put a bunch of bricks around your casket. Like basketball, football. we'll make your funeral look real manly and look like you ain't got no love. Yeah, that's what you end up looking like. You look like people don't love you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Or it's not even that people don't love you to that point. It's more so that you, even though you really want that love, you just don't want to like express it because it shows that it makes you vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, then you feel like you're wide open to be criticized of what a man is.
Can I say something?
Come on, man. Come on.
So there's another Jason. He's an interview he did with the guy named Dean Boscott, and he talked about how people die in the hood all the time because there's a fear of vulnerability that a guy will want to shoot you because you stared at him too long. Yeah. And he said, he's like, man, like that guy will shoot you because he thinks that you see him. And like you think that I
like
see
the real you.
Yeah, and like you see what I'm going through, and I don't want you to see that. Yeah, and like people die from that.
Yeah, I have to protect that because if you see that, I'm exposed.
Because it's raw feelings that I've never had any therapy or conversation around. So I think that whatever this is like toxic. It's the worst part of me when really it's just a part of you. Yeah. And so that's so crazy to me.
No, that's good because I think that goes back to what you were talking about earlier as far as this generation of fathers being different from the past generations because they were so, we don't talk. The man cave was like really like a man cave where they go in, they, from hard day of work, the job that they hate, they go downstairs in the basement, they don't talk to their kids, they don't talk to their wives. They sit on that couch, drink a beer, and they fall asleep, and they get up and do it all over again. And really, when we look at him, we think he's so mad or so mean, and he's just hurting. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? He's just hurting. But this generation, I think that we're more conscious and aware through education, and social media being a blessing that it is in certain aspects, where we're hearing it, and we're like, well, that kind of sounds like that's me. Yeah. So if that sounds like me, I have a choice to either deal with it or not deal with it. But at the end of the day, I'm starting to be aware now. So I can go ahead and keep being how I am, but I'm aware. And it's forcing the conversation and forcing people or men to want to change. And what it's doing is it's indirectly healing the generation, slowly but surely. So, and I mean, and don't get us wrong, like you and I think we're more understanding of this, but even for us, it's still a challenge, wouldn't you say?
Major challenge.
Yeah.
It's a major challenge. I think that we have to just be constantly cognizant of it, right? Yeah. And I was even thinking about how men tend to heal in the long run, like we find some ways of growing up through women. Right? I mean, so a lot of our adolescent and our years of maturity is spent pursuing women. I made a post today just about how Mike Tyson, he did an interview on his show where he was talking about how he wasted his years because he thought what he was doing was what he should be doing. He's buying planes, sex with 100 women, drinking here, smoking, like just living, the life, quote unquote. And he said, I was dying to live. Yeah. And it goes back to even another, Jay-Z thing where the album 444 was celebrated for Jay being so vulnerable and being so outspoken about, his marital issues and just his things growing up with his mom or his feelings with his dad. Like it was probably one of the most vulnerable albums he's ever written. But
any rapper.
Do you think that it's necessary, or should we be careful as to not try to only mature through the sacrifice of women?
Yeah, I think that, this is the sad thing about, or the thing that kind of like makes me sad about people like Jay, who we to this day, we still huge fans of Jay, man. I, as a businessman, but also growing up on him as an artist, man, and just really learning from him. But the thing that kind of breaks my heart with men like that, or men that are in influential positions, or just men in general, is that it's almost like we usually get it later on in life. Yeah. So it's like, thank God that, you are in this place right now where you're starting to, change and influence, a lot of young Black men. But why did it take you, so many years to get there? And that's no shame or no
Yeah.
knock on him, but that's kind of a heartbreaker for me. Even me at 24 is when I really, as a believer, surrendering my life to Christ at 24. But there was still so much damage done from my late teens till my early 20s, all the stuff that I did and all the women that I messed around with. I mean, even to this day, I might see a random woman that, that I messed with in the past, and I would feel bad because it's like, yeah, I am different now, but the scars that she have, that they're gonna still be there. Now, I pray to God that she can forgive and move on, or whatever her issues are, whether it's me or someone else. But it's like, why does it take for us to ruin or hurt or negatively impact somebody else's life for us to change? And I think that goes back to the importance of us really getting on our stuff early on so that we can help those that are younger than us and then advance the culture forward. So, example, there's a guy that he just graduated from high school. Man, he's near and dear to my heart. Man, I really like this dude, man. And I always invite him over. Me and Ari cook for him. Spend time with him. And I'm just trying to give him the game as much as I can because he's 18. So it's like, man, what if I can get him now? To not be on those things that, it's crazy. He's literally like, this is wild. He's literally just texting.
That's crazy.
He literally just texted me. But what if I can get to him now? It will be like, he won't have to worry about those, those things, or the women in his life, or whoever. He won't have to worry about those mistakes because he's getting that information now. So I just want us to, we're going to always make mistakes. We're not perfect, but there are certain things that we don't have to necessarily go through to change. So to go back to your point, like as far as sacrificing women or sacrificing whatever it may be, there are some things we don't have to sacrifice. Like, I don't have to go to jail for five years because I was selling dope, to make money. That was a struggle for me. The struggle could be, man, I was struggling 5 years in my business. Or the struggle, I don't have to 5 years of messing around with all these women. Now I got 2 baby mamas, and no knock to anybody that's had kids out of wedlock because I'm out of wedlock, as a child growing up. But what if my struggles is with my wife instead? You know what I'm saying?
How do you learn those lessons though? Like, it's so, this is the sins of the father type of thought, right? Like, how do you learn those? I always tell Jazz, like, the generational curse and, that transference typically in my mind takes place because the father and whatever he was going through, whatever he was doing, if he was an alcoholic, he understood that he probably had a connection to this alcohol that he shouldn't have. But because of the shame around being vulnerable and being helped, he could never talk to his children about what not to do with alcohol. It locked his voice up. Same thing with women, same thing with smoking or handling your finances. Like, if you aren't free in that place, you lost your voice. And so your children, they can be strong in all the other areas except that one that you never could teach them. So how do you, is there a strategy being the guy that, mentors so many children, like, and other young men that they can use to overcome that, even if they don't know that that's coming?
Yeah, I think that that's very real. If you wasn't taught something, you don't know. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying as far as advancing the culture. But I think at the end of the day, there are people that wasn't taught anything and they went on to be success stories, or they went on to accomplish things. So I'm not saying that you're not going to have trial and errors, you're not going to go through things. I'm talking about us trying our best to help those that are coming up under us, our successors in a sense, to not have to deal with necessary things in life. Like, for example, when I was 18, I got kicked out of college. And at one point, I had a felony on my record. And then, I was on probation for 18 months, and I thought that, once I had my mind together after I got, everything cleared and, went through my diversion program, got my record expunged, I thought that I was going to be, focused. Well, when I finally got back into school, I did the same thing. I got kicked out of school twice. Here I am kicked out of 2 schools.
Same school?
No, Akron and Toledo.
Okay. And
for me, it's just like, I don't care what nobody say. I didn't have to go through that. Now, thank God that, he, moved in my life. There was grace, there was mercy.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that I needed to go through that to be who I am today. Now, I went through it and it's made me who I am today, but did I have to go through that? Why do I have to go to jail? Why do I have to, get a woman pregnant? Why do I have to mess up my money?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that those things will, that those are trial and error, but I'm just saying there are certain things in life that I feel like we don't necessarily have to go through to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And then when we teach these kids or our children, whatever, and we give them the ability to make an informed decision, at that point is on them.
Big facts.
So then it's no longer, my responsibility as far as what you do with it, but now, and I did my job. But I think that's where my heart is at, is that I just want these young men to make better decisions, knowing that they're going to struggle, whatever, life, you can't get through life without a struggle. In fact, I hope that you have some struggles.
Yes.
But I don't want you to have to go through some unnecessary struggles.
What do you think? So, a good portion said at 24, you turn your life over to Christ. Mm-hmm. How, as a man, how in your mandom, like, how did that shift you? Because there's still like, you're at the 50-yard line almost, you know what I mean? Like, you're at halftime, better example. And here's the Twan that was probably down by 28. And then how did you turn the game around? How did that turn the game around for you?
Yeah, I think the beautiful part about being a believer is, one, you really start to understand your identity. I think that is so important, because it's like when you know who you are, that nothing else can really define you, that you are a child of God. And I know that can sound cliche, but if I really am a believer, truly a believer, and I really believe that Christ is my Savior, if I really believe that, and there is nothing outside of him, he is the greatest thing in my life, the greatest thing, that's known to man. If I'm his son, then that comes with a certain type of weight. Yeah. Like, for example, if Jay hit you up and Beyonce hit you up and Obama and Michelle hit you up, like, Chris, we want you and Jazz to come through and kick it. And everybody know, like, I'm like good friends with Jay-Z and Beyonce. Yeah. I'm good friends with the Obamas. Like, I'm good friends with Brian and Savannah, whoever. You like, I'm not tripping on who not my friend. Like, I'm kicking it. I'm on PJs, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to events and stuff like that. Like, why do I care that you don't like me? So that, like, think about them and then think about Christ. So I think for me, it was like, man, like, I am really who he say I am. I am a child of the Most High. I'm seated in heavenly places. I'm the righteousness of God. And it's like, even with all the mess that I've been through, that right there helped me to remove myself from crowds or people that I was around that wasn't no good for me. Yeah. That helped me to make tough decisions as far as like relationships, how I move, and being okay with that. And I think from there, it gave me a clarity to just really move on and just really figure out, okay, what does it look like to be a man, as a man of God or a Christian? And I would say that if there was one word I can describe manhood, it would be responsibility. And I was responsible to, taking care of my business in every aspect of my life. Now, sure, I made mistakes. Yeah. I'm still learning, certain things as I go, but I feel that was the ultimate like game changer for me. It's the identity, and then just moving on from there.
I tend to 100% agree. And from when I think about look back over my life, I had the opportunity to say when I was 12. That's good, and it could be good and indifferent. I won't say bad. So it could be good and indifferent. Good because I had an opportunity to probably stay away from a lot of things growing up. But I think bad because it became just another common thread of my life. You know what I mean? Like it became just as analogous as saying like, oh, I started learning sports at 12 too. And that just became part of my life. I just kept up with sports the way I kept up with God and church. And so when you get 17, 18, it hasn't. I think that it's important for a man to have an impact, like something that dents your life, like I was too young. I didn't go through something enough to have had it dent my life, and so it took me to go through some stuff, later on in my life, in my marriage, not being 100% faithful in my marriage, having children, looking at them a certain way, wanting to make sure that they understood, what God should look like in their life, having a very spiritual wife, like, and it took kind of all of that to kind of come together for me to see, oh, he's still sustaining me.
Yeah.
Okay, now this thing is kind of real. It's not, because for so long, and many people probably listening to this, especially let's say you're Catholic and you grew up just kind of doing the 1-2 with your parents or grandparents, and you look at mass as something that you just do once a year. You just kind of you go through these things, and you're a Christian. You go to the Protestant Christian, you just go to church on Christmas and Easter, and you look at these things and you walk and say you're a Christian, but you don't have anything to really sustain you with that.
Yeah. And
I think that's a growth point. That when you need something to pull on, you're gonna really need something to really pull on.
Yeah.
And I don't think you get that without trials and tribulation.
I agree.
I
agree. For me, when you said you feel like you had got saved at 12, I remember, saying the Lord's Prayer or whatever you want to say, and whatever you want to call it. I remember saying that I surrendered my life, at that age, at a young age. I remember my grandmother taking me to church, and I was so-called a Christian, but I always argue with my grandmother to this day. I don't believe that I was saved until I was 24. I believe a lot of people are walking around and it's more so behavior modification. It's not really heart transformation. I think that, a lot of us, have this mindset that, we're saved, or we believe that we're saved. So now I got to live like this as a Christian, and it's more like a check a box type thing.
Yeah.
And it's more like I got to do this because this is what the word says, or I got to do this because this is what my parents told me, or I got to do this because my church said this, and I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want to be looked at like this or that.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't believe that that's true. In my humble opinion, I don't believe that's true Christianity, because let's turn it around and look at it in marriage. It's just like, okay, I don't want to beat my wife because, I'm going to be looked at wrong. I don't want to cheat on my wife because everybody's going to be mad at me, or she's going to leave me, or I don't want to, do this or do that. And you got to ask yourself, is that really a true marriage? Is that
right.
true love? Is that, it's something that you want to do out of devotion instead of out of just duty.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's a duty to us. But I just feel for me, that's when the heart transformation comes in, because then there becomes this in your conscience and in your heart to not want to sin. Not saying that you don't fall short, but it's just like, I have this conviction. I know that the Holy Spirit is indwelling in me, and He is leading me, and guiding me, and this is wrong and that is wrong. And I want to not do this because I don't want to hurt, my God. I want to love Him through obedience or whatever. So for me, I don't believe that I was really truly there. I feel like I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
I feel like when I was kicking and partying, I still had some type of idea of it, but I wasn't really committed. And I feel that when I really committed, me personally, I seen the difference in my life.
I look at it just a tad different, just because when being saved so early, I always had it became a more of a conviction. And so it's kind of like, if somebody put a string to your back, and, in the beginning you were standing right next to the person who put the string to your back. And eventually, you started walking away, and you start walking away. You never forget that the string is on your back. Yeah. Now, as far away as you can get from the person that put the string on your back, you always know that if I ever got lost, I know how to find myself back to the person.
That's good.
Right? So that was kind of like how my conviction, worked, was that even in the times where I was up or down, or when I was like on fire, and if I then, got cold, like I always knew
Yeah,
something's telling me to return back.
that's good.
So
That's real.
that's kind of how, because I don't think, I
can
don't,
see that. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and I think the experiences are, they can
Yeah.
be different. I
Yeah.
think that when you have lived a little bit more life and then it hits you, that goes back to that dent
Yeah.
thought, like when you get like punched,
Like, oh, this is real.
yeah, like this is a difference. Like,
Yeah.
but when you're starting a little early, like because your desire for your children is for them to get maybe as saved as early as possible.
Yeah.
But when life, the world, and how it impacts them is going to still impact them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your desire is for them to recover.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of
train up a child.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think that's still a space that like you're in your book. I think that you were really even in Single to Single, you were talking to singles just about the fact that it's just vital to root your singleness in Christ first before you do anything else as far as relationships or love. Because when it comes to relationships, without there being something to pull on, you're gonna pull each other down.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And if you can't love yourself, how can you love someone else?
Yeah.
If you are unhealthy, how are you going to have a healthy, relationship? And I think so many singles, I guess this is more like, a transition into singles, if I may. I think so many singles are, they love the idea of marriage, but they have no clue.
Yeah.
I was even telling somebody not too long ago that although I meant well when I would, when I was making posts on social media about single to single and stuff like that, I would say stuff like marriage is the ultimate sanctification tool. Like, oh, marriage, man, it's gonna sanctify you. I'm not married yet, but I'm saying this.
Yeah.
And then you get into it and you like, man, you meant well what you were saying, but you really didn't have no clue. And I think a lot of times singles, they want to be married, but they don't, especially men.
What was your first moment where you thought, okay, I didn't know that. Like, what was, when you were married, like, what was an example of that?
Man, I think my wife and I, and maybe one day we'll have to come back on here and let her explain a little more. But we had a bad argument on Christmas Day.
Okay.
Christmas Day.
On the Lord's birthday.
Christmas Day. Yeah. And me and her had been married for, at this time, almost 3 months. We got married in October.
Okay.
And I was just thinking in my mind, like, whoa, like, okay, like this is real.
Yeah.
But one thing that I'm learning more now than ever, and I actually am appreciating it, is, man, as a man, as a husband, you gotta die to self, man. You gotta take them L's.
Did you apologize first?
I always apologize. I'm always the one. Well, not always, but majority of the time, like I would say 8 times out of 10, you know what I'm saying? She'll probably say 7 or 6 just to be ready. But I'm the one that always apologizes first, because not because I always feel like I'm sorry, but I feel like I'm the Christ, she's the church, and the church can be a little, wishy-washy at times. Yeah. The Christ has to be steady. And for me, that doesn't mean I've been perfect, because, oh Lord, I'm definitely not perfect, but I know that I have to set the tone, and I have to, try to adopt this more forgiving mentality. And I feel that maybe it can be contagious to her. Not saying that she doesn't forgive or that she doesn't say I'm sorry, but I think that I want to lead by example in that. And there was I seen this on Instagram. The son was talking to his father, and the son came to his father and he was like, Pops, I want to get married. And his father was like, say I'm sorry. He was like, for what? I just said I want to get married. He was like, say I'm sorry. He was like, why? Like, I just said I want to get married. He said, listen, just say I'm sorry. So they going back and forth for a while, and then the son finally was like, all right, I'm sorry. He was like, nah, you ready to be married. That's tough. And he was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, when you can say I'm sorry for what you don't even know what you're saying I'm sorry for, then you're ready to get married. And for me, I've only been in this not even a full year, but I feel like I'm learning that early on. Just say I'm sorry. Just just humble yourself enough to just die to this. Like, take that L. You're gonna have to take it. You're more responsible to take that L than she is. And when I would be in our premarital, I would wonder why they was always focusing so much on me.
Yeah.
It would feel like an attack almost.
Yeah.
But when I look at it now, and it doesn't mean that women shouldn't, do the same thing, because we are called to submit to one another. But like, man, die. You gotta die. You gotta take the L. She do something bad. I'm not saying just be somebody, just let her run over you or whatever. Right. But for the sake of your marriage and the health of it, you gotta be steady. You gotta be the one to do that. So yeah, I had that moment on Christmas, man. I was just like, whoa, okay.
It's kind of like, when those arguments happen. What I'll say is that, in the time that we've been married, the window of time in which we're upset has shrunken.
That's good. Yeah.
So in the beginning, we were just two untrained, koala bears just living with each other. And she would go her way, I would go mine. And we never really went like, more than a day. But now it's like, it may be 25 minutes. Because how
that's really good.
What her and I always say is, like, when you're arguing and you allow the space, you lose your best friend. So now that thing that you just read on social media, or something that, you got a text message that was interesting, you don't even want to share it.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So there's this tension that's really created. And in your mind, you already know the solution.
Yeah. Because
you're responsible for something that you did. She's responsible for something that she did. So you can clock watch and say, well, I'm going to wait until she comes out, because she was more wrong.
Yeah.
Or you can be the man that you say you are, right? Because it's not all about physical toughness. It's about how we started when we said mental tough. It's about being mentally tough. This goes back to just, I didn't even say that title. Something that I really want to talk about, which is how we've confused masculinity. And it's not all about, I'm the strongest, the most brute force, the coldest heart.
Yeah. No,
it's the heart that is more willing to sacrifice its pleasure, its emotion, because of the greater good. Right? So I'm willing to go upstairs, search in my mind for something that I'm wrong about, and say, and lay it on the table.
Yeah, that's a man.
That's a man.
That is a man. And that is tough to get to, because why is it for us, and not even just men, but just people in general, why is it so hard for us to just say, I'm sorry?
Pride,
emotions,
vulnerability.
So really, when you're like not, saying I'm sorry or humbling yourself, it's because of something that's going on internally in you.
Yeah.
And it kind of go, and then, what we were talking about the other day, it's also faith.
Yeah.
A lot of times we don't want to forgive or say I'm sorry. We don't want to pardon the offense, because we want that person to be brought to justice. And if that person is not brought to justice, then we're going to take the initiative to make sure that happens.
On our own.
What
do we call it? Human justice?
Human justice. I remember you said that the other day. That really blessed me, because human justice, think about it, like, we're so flawed. So we're biased. And we're trying to get this justice, but it's coming from a place of imperfection. When if we allow God to get the justice, it's going to always work out for our good. It's going to work out for His glory. Yeah. And in a situation where someone has wronged you, you don't want to forgive, or whatever the case may be, you're pretty much saying, God, like, no, I'm going to take control of this. I don't believe that you're going to get justice for me. And then on the flip side, even more, or take it a little further, what if He say, you know what, I'm gonna let them slide.
Right.
Like, they just wronged you. They just played you out on some money. Yeah. Your wife, calls you out your name. Your friend was disloyal. You like, oh, I gotta pay them back. They gotta get that. I gotta get my revenge.
But he's more likely to let them slide. He's not a keeper of records.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's consequences to, there are consequences to sin, but a lot of time there's the consequences that we can't choose them.
But sometimes, I think that there may be a greater lesson, because we can make our ego an idol. You know, so
Absolutely.
in that sense,
Absolutely.
while you're awaiting someone to apologize to you, he may be teaching you the lesson.
Yeah.
So that you can learn that you're not going to get what you want.
You might have prayed last month, like, Lord, really help me with my ego.
Yeah.
And then the situation come along, you're not even looking at the fact that he answering your prayer, but really, you know, you thinking like, I just been hurt. But then, you know, it just go back to that faith thing, man. That's why I'm telling you, as a man, you know, being married, you know, that's a faith thing. Like, all right, God, I feel wrong right now. I'm hurt. I'm bothered. But I'm going to trust that you are going to, you know, to do what you're going to do. Yeah. Because it's like, that's why, you know, when we talked about the other day, that's why, like, the Bible tells us to love our neighbor. But it's like, all right, I'm loving my neighbor. It doesn't say love your neighbor because if you don't love her or him or whatever, if you don't love that person, then they're going to, they're not going to be cool with you no more. Or if you don't love them, then it's going to make them lack confidence. Or if you don't love them, you're not loving them, you don't know that they had a mental issue or something like that, so they didn't have the capacity to make the decision that you wanted them to make. It just says to love. It doesn't explain that. So your job is to look, I got to love you. It might be hard as ever to do it, but I'm going to make the decision to love you. And that kind of goes with forgiveness. It's unconditional. It's just like, it doesn't explain to you exactly why you need to do it in the details of it. Yeah. You're just supposed to do it. But again, why don't we do it? Ego, pride, unforgiveness, emotions, or whatever. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about initially. When we learn to heal, when we get our mindset together, our emotions together, then we can, we can make better decisions. Yeah. It's deep, man.
Listen, well, thank you for not having too much of an ego to come on here and talk to me.
Oh, man. Come on, man.
Much love. Amen. Appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir, man.
So listen, y'all, thank y'all so much for listening. Jasmine will be back soon. Y'all pray for her. She's actually going to Africa. So I don't actually know if you all are going to hear from her until she gets back. And so she'll have plenty to talk about her trip to Africa. And make sure you visit thefreshlifestore.com. And make sure you subscribe and share the podcast because, that's just a cool thing to do. So, again, make sure you also visit and follow my man Twan at Twan Steele. That's TwanSteele. And make sure you buy his book, Single to Single. It's a can't miss winner, man. So, thank y'all again. Thank you, Twan.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, brother. All right, y'all be blessed.